Big Kahuna.
Joshua.
How you doing, man?
Oh, pretty good.
It's that time again.
It is.
Yeah.
It's finally there.
We're finally there after our third practice go today. A bit rusty. We'll get that rust off.
What was the last time we did this?
Oh, man. It was about breed legislation.
I know, but when was that?
Yeah, probably like 1960 or something like that. But we're back. We're here to talk about what's happening in the sort of dog training landscape.
Oh, yes.
One very dear to our hearts, and should be to every dog trainer. And anybody that's sort of had a dog that needed to be helped using this tool.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to talk about. This is episode 21, I think.
It is.
Should check that every time. Anyways, here we go. Big Kahuna Burger Boy.
Oh, Josh, how you going?
I would far rather tame a tiger than push a turtle.
Yeah, I would be a blue vein cheese farmer.
Yeah.
Or maker. I don't think they farm blue vein cheese. Don't quote me, but it's like won the ugliest dog in the world competition, this breed.
Anyway, I'm Chip Tuckett. I'm from Alabama.
Who's that?
That sounds like Chip Tuckett from Alabama.
We've had heaps of dogs growing up.
Yeah.
But the just mutts and like weird dogs that mum and dad have picked up from like an Asian market. Like, hey, I brought home a dog. I'm like, we're not going to eat it, right? Yeah. No, we're keeping this one.
Have you spoken to Chip Tuckett?
I haven't spoken to him in a while.
Yeah, either have I.
Yeah.
Funny that.
I like that little...
It's jazzy.
Yeah.
You
jazzed up the intro.
I've recently sort of got into that style of music. It just calms me down. You know?
I can see why.
Something about it. But so what are we here to talk about today on Dog Ugly Dudes Talking Dogs, Big Kahuna?
Well, very specifically, this isn't probably affecting everybody that's going to be listening.
No, definitely not.
But it will eventually, because it's just spreading like wildfire. This situation.
Yep.
So this is the e-collar legislation issue, which pops up over and over and over again, and this time it seems quite bad for the Victorian side of things over here in Australia.
Yeah,
which is a real shame.
It's a real shame. It was something that everybody, that uses e-collars and knows how to use them effectively and uses them for work and stuff like that was sort of hoping would just go away. But, the writing's on the wall, especially in terms of when, it's been banned in places like Germany and then the UK followed suit. I don't think they'll ever get America. They might in some of the more progressive states over there and stuff like that. But it's certainly taken effect in some states here in Australia already.
Bloody liberals.
Well, liberals here in Australia means something different.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And, so that's where we're at, and we're staring it down, and it looks like it's most likely going to happen. And we just want to have a chat about it today, to air out our thoughts and feelings, hopefully change some people's minds. We've done probably 2 episodes on e-collars already, you know, so this is the third coming up. And, we've got different points that we're going to talk about today, mainly, what are we banning exactly? Who's...
And what specific e-collar tools that we're talking about? Like this isn't just remote trainers. This is
everything, anything electronic
that the dogs wear, like the perimeter fences and all that sort of stuff.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so where do you want to kick us off there? I see you got a big notepad, man.
It's a huge notepad with only a tiny bit of writing on it, but that's
how I like my notepads.
I hope it's all in my head.
It will be.
So currently, the legislation that they're looking at for Victoria. They've already have some states in Australia that it's banned. It's banned completely in the UK, the same way that they're looking to do here in Victoria. So what they're trying to say now is there's been a draft of legislation that's come out and has gone through a critique process, and we haven't heard the results of it yet. But the legislation is proposed to be a complete ban. So that's nobody who currently has them would be allowed to continue using them. Nobody could buy them. Nobody could sell them. It's a full ban, except they have created some sort of exception that nobody really understands for the police. So
Yeah.
they're saying that it's useful for the police, but nobody else.
That's the worst part, though.
Oh man,
You know, because I've met police along the way that have absolutely no idea. And it's just like, you know, you're a policeman, so you like, oh, well, I definitely know what I'm doing. Well, no, you don't. I've seen dogs. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, but
I have.
But you know what though? That's not even the. I wouldn't even like. We can't frame it around that because that helps their argument. What ends up being the case is that we need to say, if the police can use it, then why shouldn't anybody else be able to use it? You know, the people that are training the police to use it actually aren't going to legally be able to use them on their own dog.
Mate, I'm telling you, the police aren't doing that, though. They're figuring it out as they go along. Like,
Right.
Oftentimes I'm like, where'd you learn to use an e-collar? And they're like, oh, just sort of picking up bits and pieces. You know, like videos I've seen on YouTube. I'm like, that is fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're allowed to get away with that because, you know, you're a police officer. Mm-hmm. Half the time these cops don't even know. Like, they work with certain breeds of dogs and they're like, this is the cookie cutter thing. And it's like, one size fits all. Well, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's wrong that is what it's going to be. Don't get me wrong. Not every police officer like that works with working dogs, you know, falls into that category. There's some excellent operators, people that truly understand the fundamentals and how to implement them. But to say that you just qualify to use it because you're a dog handler in the police, some of the worst handlers I've ever seen are dog handlers in the police.
Yeah. And I think the idea that they're trying to say is that the police have their. I was talking to one of a police officer about this, and they have their internal like education about the e-collars, but it doesn't really matter because if they have education that says this is how they're used, and this is even if they had perfect use of them, right? So
Yep.
that, like what you're talking about there, yes, that's true, but it doesn't even matter because if they have something that says we can teach our people how to use them properly, and then they can use them on a dog and it's not cruel, well then why is that not the same for everybody else, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Why can't we give everybody that course that the police officers are taking, like expand that to the public, and if you've been qualified to use them, then you can use them. You know, what is it about the police officers' training that allows them to be able to use it? Or what is it about their dogs that allows it? Because if you say, oh, well, they're high drive dogs, well, so are hunting dogs.
Absolutely.
You know?
So, you know, that's it. It's like, just because they're police dogs doesn't make them like astronomically different to any, like the dogs that we have and the dogs that I've trained along the journey. And I'm not just blowing my own trumpet sort of thing, but I've selectively gone and found dogs and that have certain types of drives and certain types of characteristics. And these are leagues ahead of the dogs that I have trained and come across in different and varied policing agencies throughout Australia.
Well, the point being that everybody has access to those dogs.
That's
so
right.
What difference? It can't be the dog.
And more often than not, people don't want that, but that's just what they get. Mm-hmm. You know, that is what they get.
Yeah, and
they're a victim of circumstance that way.
The thing that bugs me about it is that the legislation is around stopping cruelty to animals.
Yeah,
which I'm all for. Right?
Yeah, so, and I'm telling you, the way that some of these police use these things, man, it's like they don't know.
Right,
they're not following that.
Yeah, and which to me means there needs to be a standardized training program
100%
that talks about them. Yeah, and then we can go from there and say, okay, everybody who's using e-collars has gone through this course. The same way that, I mean, you're always going to still have some people that are using them inappropriately because you're going to get things the same way that you get it with guns. You know, people inappropriately use them, and then someone gets shot or whatever.
Yep.
But they're not completely banned. What you're getting is everybody has the right to go and take a course, learn about the safety, learn about the proper way to handle them and the way to use them, and then you get a license that says I am certified to be able to use this thing. Why is that not a possibility for e-collars? I don't understand how that it just goes to an immediate, we're going to ban them for everybody but police officers. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either, mate. And like, you know, hopefully that's the saving grace, that eventually that's the road that it'll go down, and people like you and I and so many others out there that are responsible and understand the fundamentals and the principles and how to apply them using this technology will be able to do that course.
Yeah.
And then still be able to use these things.
Yeah. And the thing that I've going through all this process, because I've been quite heavily involved in trying to, work against the legislation. So they had a survey that went out. I did the survey.
Yep.
I properly read the whole draft. I read the reasons for the draft, and then I sent a couple of letters to some of the political figures that were involved in writing the legislation and that sort of stuff
Here in Victoria.
Yep. And there's going through that process. Even like when we talk about this now, we have to be careful about the way that we talk about it, because even saying that some of the police are using it wrong, that's not going to help our argument. You know what I mean?
No, it's not, but it's the truth.
It's the truth, but in that case, then we should ban them. You see what I mean? So if they're supposedly getting a good training and education on them,
but
they're still using them wrong, that means that there's something wrong with the situation.
That's just it, mate. They're not getting the education.
Right.
They're not. They're like, here's this.
Right. Which means we need to have some sort of education in place. Like the way the current legislation is, I agree, is wrong.
Yep. That was the point I was making.
Yeah.
It was like, they're just getting given these things, and they're like, oh, this is part of like the tools of the trade.
Yeah.
It's like you have to use and more often than not, like a lot of them aren't using them because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
But then they're the ones that aren't using them properly because they've never been educated. They're just trying to educate themselves.
And nobody's being educated properly because there's no
standardization.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing because everybody is afraid to agree on something.
Yeah. But you were talking before about so what are we actually banning? Are we banning positive punishment, or what did you say?
Yeah, so this is the question that I've got, because all of the reasons for banning e-collars are the same reasons you could ban any tool for punishment.
Yep.
Any tool, a correction chain, a
head halter,
one of those harnesses that
gentle
leader harness
bullshit.
things, the prongs, e-collars, any sort of correction tool. It's the same reasons apply to every single correction tool on the planet.
Yep.
If you use them wrong, you will have problems.
That's right.
You can create learned helplessness. You can have all sorts of issues. Everybody that's using corrections should know and understand what they're doing and why. And if you don't understand it, you shouldn't be using corrections. And that's where, if that's the case, you just do as much everything positive as possible. And if you are going to start using corrections and things like that, you must understand why you're using them and how to not affect the dog adversely. And this is the thing. E-collars fit in the same category as halties.
Yep.
So you can't ban one without banning them all. So what they're proposing is that e-collars are cruel and people shouldn't use them because they cause all these problems. Well, they don't cause any different problems than any other tool, is the point. So they have all these studies in there that say e-collars are bad and whatever, which all of them you can find fault in every single one of the studies that they're using. Like I looked at all the studies that they used in the review for e-collars over in the UK, and every single study that they did had issues in it. There's no good studies, and I think that's part of the problem. Nobody has any quality studies on how these can affect and cause problems and cause good things in dogs. So
Yep.
they feel like they don't have enough information about the whole thing, and everybody's just throwing in nonsense studies and stuff like that to try and prove their point.
Yeah.
And nothing makes any sense.
No.
So I feel for the people writing the legislation. I honestly do, because they're sitting there they don't know who to listen to, and I fully understand that. They've got these lobby groups over here that are saying they're bad. This is why. Look at all these studies and all this stuff, and then you got these people who are us over here saying no, you need to keep them here because this, and this, and then in between all that, you've got the people that don't use them at all. You got the people that are using them correctly, and then you got a group of people in the middle that know nothing about them that are wrecking dogs with them, right?
100%.
But that's that's not just e-collars. That's every correction tool, right?
Yep.
This is the thing. There should be, rules around whether or not you can use corrections on your dog, and that has to be based on education. Because no matter what you do, if you're correcting your dog and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to cause problems. And so, I mean, I find the whole thing to be just a nightmare issue right now because there's no solution. It's again one of these things where there's no solution unless something like education is put into place, like some sort of course that you must take the exact same way that they do with guns.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right, man.
They don't send police officers out with their gun without training.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
All those types of tools need to have training behind them. It's the same thing with any correction device with a dog. And realistically, it should be all correction devices. It shouldn't be like the legislation should be around any correction device that you're using.
100%, man. That's an excellent point.
The other problem that I've got with it,
but you know what? People would stop buying dogs.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. The other problem that I've got with it though is that you can make a correction out of anything.
You could.
You can yell at a dog.
This water bottle.
Yeah. You yell at a dog. You spray him with water. You as soon as you start taking other correction tools away, then people are going to start resorting to more problematic ways of correcting their dogs as well.
People will figure out other ways.
Yeah.
Like...
We need to stay on track here because we're going to get angry.
I know, but it's like, okay, so in some other places, in a different time, and I'm not saying that this happens, but you hear stories from old people training dogs, like the good old boys. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't have the access to these things. And it's like, how did you fix dog aggressive behavior or reactivity to the handler? And they'd be like, well, we'd put a slip collar on it and we would choke that dog out.
Yeah, every time it
did it.
Yeah.
And then, like, is that better?
Yeah.
Honestly,
No.
is that...
Yeah, no.
Because the dog...
In a low-level stim on an e-collar? Yeah. Yeah. Is that...
So it comes to a point, so we can't use e-collars as trainers. And I've lost count of the amount of dogs that you have and the owners of those dogs that you have positively changed their life by using the tool appropriately and communicating to the dog that the behavior that they're displaying at the time is not okay by administering the required amount of stim.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those clients come to you when you don't have that tool available to you.
I am going to have to tell them
that you can't.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, well, we're going to have to choke your dog out until it's unconscious.
Yeah, and I'm not willing to do that. And
no,
I'm not even,
I wouldn't do that.
No. I'm not willing to do any of those things.
You could not make me do that.
No.
That is just... So people could see both things as cruel, but like, to me, one thing is infinitely worse.
Yes. And much worse than that, again, is what happens to the dogs if you can't help them by using an e-collar.
Well, that's it.
Because they're guaranteed to go to a shelter and they're guaranteed to get put down. And, if the ones that make it into the shelter and last any time at all just spend their last week or two in there...
Complete stress.
Totally lost, missing their family, and then someone comes in and puts a needle in them and they're done.
Yep.
So that's the result of this. And this is the other part. It's not even just remote collars. It's so even things where humans have no part in it. Bark collars. Mm-hmm. The perimeter fences. The perimeter fence is infinitely better than a farm fence for
cattle. Yeah.
Okay? It's infinitely better. It gives a tone as a warning before the dog actually gets a stim from it.
Yep.
So as the dog approaches the edge of the property, it'll give a tone saying you're getting too close, and then the dog can move away and avoid it. Yep. And if it keeps going, then it gets the stim. So what does that, like, how is that? And the stim is much less, and you can set it to whatever you need in comparison to a cattle fence.
That's it.
So you could run a fence around your property, an electric fence that's a cattle fence, and have your dog walk into that, but you're not allowed to put a
guarantee
perimeter fence on.
I guarantee you they're not going to ban them.
No,
you can't.
They can't.
You can't ban a perimeter fence for bloody cattle.
But you know what they will do is they'll try.
Oh, fuck.
You know, the problem with e-collars for dogs is that there's not enough people using them, right? It's not affecting enough people to take them away, so they can. And all they care about, these lobby groups and stuff that are pro, whatever, like cruelty free, which I am, of course, I'm a cruelty free person.
So am I, mate.
You know? But all they're for is removing slowly whatever they can. Right, so they were able to get rid of the prongs because prongs look bad, and that was an easy one to get past people. And then e-collars is another one because they can say you're electrocuting your dog, and all this sort of stuff. So,
shut the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. So they push all that propaganda out there, and then they build an audience that allows them.
But this
to
is the
get rid of
shit
it.
thing. It's these okay, so people automatically they're like, oh well, if it's the light side, the dark side, and everybody sees the RSPCA because they're a massive part of this, and then people go, oh well, I have to side with the RSPCA because of ethical treatment of animals, but those fucking. Hang on, I got to slow it down, man. I got to slow it down because we got a story.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy. And then these dog owners, they're like, oh, the RSPCA, they can't be doing anything bad.
Yeah. And that's because that's the way that they portray themselves. Which is obviously they have a method to their madness. They know what they're doing. And things like for example, that dog that a trainer friend of ours wanted to get this dog out of the RSPCA for the purpose of training it for an assistance role with someone who was suffering from PTSD.
PTSD, a veteran.
Yeah.
And he was told that, no, we will not let you, we won't let you take this dog because we're not interested in the dog having to go into a working home.
Yeah. Didn't want the dog to have a working role. So, which was to cuddle the owner when he shows signs of stress. That was the dog's job, and it's not allowed to do that. They don't want the dog to do that because...
I'm going to grind my teeth down to the gums here.
Yeah, because that's a working role, right? It has nothing to... It was it's a lab. It's a gentle lab that's going to be able to go out in public.
That's the thing, mate. The Labrador had been surrendered.
Yeah.
Because of behaviors.
Yeah, and potentially that dog doesn't find a home and gets put down instead.
Yeah, so they're more than happy for that to be the case.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we'd rather this dog get the green dream.
Yep, absolutely.
Than you have it and go and put it... The same things happen with the police, man.
Yeah.
That's where they used to go. They used to go to places like the RSPCA and shit like that, and they'd be like, this shepherd or lab or whatever it is a perfect candidate for the program. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
They're like, why? It's like, because you're going to do X, Y, and Z to it.
Yeah, and then
it's like, oh, so
kill it instead.
Yeah. So the short-term pain, so that the dog can have a happy life.
Yeah.
Do something that it wants to do. So do something that was bred to do. It's in its DNA.
Yeah. Yeah.
You fucking idiots. Fuck.
I know. It's a really frustrating topic. And the problem is it's so frustrating because we have no power in the situation. And honestly, I find it quite difficult because trainers on the balance side of things don't really we don't have a group, we don't have because we don't feel we need one, but we're at the point now where we're getting the other side has this movement, the other side, the positive only, whatever they want to call themselves, which is I hate even using that word even in this conversation because it just doesn't exist. But that side, the force-free trainer side of things, they have a huge following, and they can push legislation, and they can spend money on pushing propaganda. They do all of that stuff, and we don't do any of it.
It's the blind leading the blind, man.
Well, they get what they want. That's the thing. They get exactly what they want because they do all the things that they need to lobby the governments and all this stuff, and they get petitions signed. They send out, they'll send out a survey on their sites and stuff that shows a dog being like that super stressed out by an e-collar because someone did the wrong thing, and then they'll get 50,000 signatures that say we need to ban these things. That's the kind of thing we need on the other side that shows the dog that was trying to kill people then being social with people, right? But we don't have that because on our side of the fence it's like you got to be careful of I use an e-collar. You don't want to tell anybody. That's what people are like. 100%. Even when you have oftentimes for me, if I have a client that's using a remote trainer, they're afraid. They don't know. They ask me how to answer people when they say, "Oh, you're using a shock collar."
No, you just say, "Mind your own fucking business."
Yeah, but that doesn't help us.
Yeah.
Again, right? That is the way you want to deal with it, right?
That's how I deal with it all the time.
Yeah, but it doesn't. But
I
doesn't
know.
help.
Yeah.
Because all it does.
But
is...
you know why that's my reaction? Because I've tried to explain it to these. Oh man, I'm just thinking back to times where, man, I need to go downstairs into the cupboard right now. I'm just thinking back on some interactions that I've had with people, and it's just like your mind's already made up.
Yeah, that's right.
You will not listen to me no matter what. So you're going to get a hostile response.
Yes, and that is what happens, and I get that, and it's the problem is that's the reason we have no leverage because we're too afraid to talk about it and to say
but if you can't tell somebody like that, man. Like these are people.
I know what you mean, but I'm going to give you an example. So I'm afraid even to post stuff about the positive sides of e-collar and things like that on my website because that might deter future business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people will go, cause people that don't understand it, they may eventually, let's say I have a client who has a dog that's aggressive. They might not think that using an e-collar, they might find that very, very cruel until I go and I explain to them that this is what you need and this is why. And that person might not look at me because I use e-collars because they don't understand it yet. So I'm afraid to even let people know until I can educate them that I use e-collars.
Yeah, it's a slow process and it is a slow burn.
Right.
I've educated people before.
That's right.
We've both been in that situation where it's just like, hang on, just for a second, just listen to me.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
then you get those other people that are out there and they're charging headed like a bull at a gate and they're like, no, I'm going to get this guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to get these people.
Yes, right. So as soon as you put all of us that are using these types of tools, we don't put it on our social media and we don't put it here and there because it's you get bashed by everybody and you get people will go on and write reviews about you and say, oh, this guy uses e-collars and this and that. And I fully understand when you don't understand, when people don't understand them, that logic because I didn't used to understand them. I used to think that they were bad.
Yeah, so did I, man. So I used to think prongs were bad.
Yeah, that's right. So
now I know.
I used to think bloody martingales were bad, man.
Yeah.
I used to think all that stuff was bad until I was educated. So it's that's the problem.
I was one of those guys, man. I was like, oh well, the gentle leader looks like it's good.
Yeah, that's right.
This is well before I knew anything about dogs.
Yeah,
anything. And
that's the problem that we're facing as balanced trainers. We're hidden. We're in caves. We're hiding from everybody.
Yeah, I feel like Bin Laden.
Yeah, yeah, and then the mob is coming at us and taking all our stuff away.
Well, I've got a big cave system, and you're not going to find me until I go to Pakistan.
Yeah, exactly.
And cancel that trip to Pakistan.
Trip canceled. Oh yeah, I think we probably should have chilled out a bit before we had this conversation because
I was considering it.
Yeah, because we're I can feel myself being angry about it and all that.
I can feel it in
I don't know if we've actually gotten anywhere I think we've just been ranting. So
that's cool though.
Yeah, that's good.
I like to rant.
But I just want to just make sure that a few points are clear. So especially anybody who's in a state or country that has not banned these things yet.
Yep. We're talking to you, America.
Yeah. Start now.
Oh no, they'll never get America.
True. But California.
Yeah. California, you guys, Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado, start now.
Yeah.
Because when
New York, definitely.
When people come with their
pitchforks and torches.
Exactly. They are already prepared. They can go. They can source. The UK's done it. They can source. Germany's done it. They can source why they banned them over there, and they come at you, and there's no. Until you have an argument for it, and you have a group of people that will argue it together, you're screwed. Yep. That's where we're at right now. It was the 11th hour kind of situation where a lot of trainers got together and went, we need to write letters, we need to do this stuff. But I'm telling you, the government maybe got 100 letters.
Yeah.
You know how many they would have got from the positive group?
Oh, man.
Thousands.
Too many to count.
Yeah, too many to count. They would have got a absolute ton of them.
I would have toilet paper for never need to buy it again.
Yeah.
Because that's what I would use.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I hope they wrote it on soft
and
paper.
I'd eat so much like
paper?
No, like stuff that makes my stools hard and big, so that I could use it on it. Like, just so people know, it's like we have come through, and we were those people, man.
Yeah,
we were those people.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing: we need to like the people that aren't going to have them banned, because I think that it's probably going to go through as a complete ban, and then we're going to have to fight to get some sort of something back from it, which is going to be more difficult. But if we would have been prepared and saw, New South Wales has done it and South Australia has done it, we maybe could have come up with something, or get people from all over the country that have gone through the process already and actually collaborate and create some sort of group that lobbies for using these tools properly, and things like spending money to advertise and push education on the situation, rather than let the public try and figure it out for themselves and have no clue what they're looking at and just think, oh, that's bad, which is exactly how we felt. So we actively went out and looked for information, right?
Yeah, 100%.
The rest of the public is not going to do that.
No,
they're going to take whatever is in front of their face.
Exactly, man.
And that is all bad stuff.
It is, but it's stupid. And we've had like a particular conversation about a banned substance that's been banned for nearly 5 or 6 decades, and that's been around since humans have been walking.
Yeah,
and you're not allowed to use it.
Yeah,
but more and more people over time are opening their eyes up and being like, well, why is this thing being banned this whole time? But it's been like, back then it's like, no, only like drop kicks, losers,
Yeah, we were all told this stuff about it, and then now it's coming out that
but you just believed it back then.
That's right, and now there's all this stuff coming out. So, being from Canada in particular, this is an interesting one for me, because I grew up thinking that marijuana was
you said it, but
it's marijuana. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah,
that it was really an awful thing and really bad, and then all of a sudden it started coming out in medical things and all this sort of stuff, and that was confusing to me growing up, and then and then all of a sudden it was legal, and then I tried it, and I was like,
you tried it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
No, and then
because I don't,
and then and then all of a sudden you find out that this stuff is actually absolutely no worse than alcohol. In fact, much
better.
less of a problem than alcohol.
Yeah.
And then like I currently feel like I've been lied to my whole life.
Yep.
And that's what. But that is what exactly is happening with
the
all
e-collar.
this type of
That's
stuff.
that's the point I'm trying to bring across.
Yeah.
It's just, don't listen to everything that you're being told.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something out there for everybody that they can apply that to, that template.
Absolutely.
Just if you can just take the time just to look up something.
Yeah.
Just challenge that thought process just a little bit.
But you know what's a problem with the whole thing? So, these activist groups, they have studies, right? They studies have been done, okay, and they'll quote a study, and as soon as a study's been quoted,
yeah, then that's all that anybody has to say.
Nobody looks at the actual study.
No, but they'll be like, Harvard University did a thing back in the mid-90s
That's right.
proved that.
And if you actually look at the study and have any sort of this is the problem. They can use this to their advantage, because anybody with any sort of idea about how a study is done and all that sort of background, which is not the vast majority of the population, anybody who has a background in that can look at that study and go, oh, well, that is a joke. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
But the rest of the population is just going, oh, geez, really?
But they did the same shit with marijuana when they were trying to get rid of it, man.
Yes.
They were like, there's a strong correlation between murderers and rapists and marijuana.
Yes.
And then people were like, oh, shit.
Yes.
And then there's all these like hippies from the 60s being like, fucking what?
I haven't been raping anybody.
Yeah, I have not raped anyone this year. Let alone murder anyone. But people are like, oh, you dirty pot smoker. You know?
Yes.
Same
exactly,
thing.
Exactly.
It's like, don't just reference a study that,
That's
some
right.
bullshit
That's
thing.
You know what the crazy part is, though? I was looking at the studies for the other side, and they're just as bad.
Yeah.
Like, they're just as bad.
Yep.
People are doing the studies only to suit themselves. So then everything, there's all these biases in the studies and all this nonsense.
Yeah, both sides of the fence.
Oh God,
like
it's honest, but
Yeah.
we're battling in bullshit land over here. Everybody's battling in bullshit land, and
that'd be a sick movie. The
Oh,
Battle
man.
of Bullshit Land.
but it's seriously, that's bullshit land is where the two sides are battling, and they're sending on like, oh, have a bit of that and
Big
have a bit
old
of that.
bits of bullshit
Yeah,
over the fence at each
exactly.
other.
And then that becomes a huge problem, because then when the people go to write the legislation, they go, well, everything everybody's feeding us is bullshit. I don't really know what to do, so I guess we'll just ban them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's where the argument of what are we banning? Are we banning
Exactly.
e-collars, or are we banning positive punishment? Because if you're banning positive punishment, there's plenty of studies out there on punishment and reinforcement and all that sort of stuff that show that punishment has a purpose in learning, and that there are bad things that can happen if you use punishment wrong, but that if you use it correctly, then it will do wonders for you.
Yeah.
There's certain things you can only teach through punishment, right?
That's
so
right, man.
when you're doing aversion training and stuff like that. So if you look at those studies that were done in the past on all that stuff, the really important ones that they still refer to, those ones do prove that punishment has a place. And if you're looking at punishment being the thing that they're banning or not, then it doesn't matter what the tool is.
That's right.
Unless it's a tool. I mean, obviously there's tools that are really, you're not going to be able to just, the dog does something wrong and you stab them. But like something like an e-collar, you're doing no harm, and the only harm that you can do with it is psychological, which is any punishment.
Yep.
Any punishment can do the same thing. And I mean, if they're going to ban it, ban punishment.
Yeah.
At least.
That's right.
At least I can accept that they're just trying to ban punishment.
That's right.
But
man.
all they're doing is picking away at all our tools.
Yep.
They're taking. It's like taking a hammer and nails from a builder.
Yeah. What do you want me to fucking headbutt it?
Yeah.
Well, I could do it, but your house is going to look a bit weird.
They're replacing hammer and nails with staples. Basically, is what they're doing. So you're allowed to use check chains and you're allowed to use these, and we're going, well, what if we need to fasten two things together that are that require a bit more support?
Just use a bit of sellotape.
Exactly.
Just
right?
do that.
So they're taking away the tools so that we can't do certain jobs. So now we can't do the jobs where there's a dog that's attacking sheep, and what happens
So
when
that dog ceases to exist, and ultimately, this is what these
what they
people are
want.
trying to achieve, man.
This is what
They're
they
like,
want,
well,
yeah.
why are people breeding those dogs? And it's like, because they have a purpose.
Yes.
You fucking idiots. And they have had a purpose for centuries.
Yes. Yep.
And that's what the dogs enjoy doing.
Yes.
You. I'm going to go and scream into my pillow. Han will come home and she'll be like, Josh, and I'll just be like,
Josh, you were doing a podcast again, weren't you?
yeah. What'd you put Canadian stripper music in for?
Oh,
Just to give it that break.
yeah, just a little bit of.
Well, we've hit the 40-minute mark and we're doing pretty good.
Oh man, we fired into it, didn't we?
Oh man, I lost track of where I am. I know when I'm starting to get agitated when
I can tell.
Like-
when you started eating the microphone, that's how I could tell.
But yeah, let's summarize and then let's just finish. I don't even have a tune to take us out. I forgot.
We're gonna have to revisit this, but
I'll just sing Don't You Want Me Baby and then we'll fade it out. Yeah. That's all.
yeah. Well, what we'll do is we'll need to revisit this because and we'll revisit it once we find out about what happens.
Which will be so we'll be back in 2 years, we'll have found out and then we'll have forgotten and then,
Yeah, and once we find out if they say so. We didn't get into any of the stuff that I was thinking because we got too heated. But
what stuff were you thinking?
Well,
we've got time.
We had these. So what the legislation was is they had options, right? So the options were option 1, option 2, option 3. Option 3 was the full ban. Option 2 was add more legislation, and option 1 was to kind of keep it as it is. And this is the thing that is quite frustrating actually as well.
See, we're not even in the option 1 thing.
Right. See, now option 1 is to keep the current legislation. Nobody's following the current legislation. Nothing happens. Nobody's checking anything. There was a part of the one that happened in the UK. They had legislation around them as well.
Yep.
But there were no RSPCA or any cruelty to animals organization has ever prosecuted cruelty to an animal using an e-collar.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. It's never been prosecuted, right? So the cruelty to animals part of it has no grounds outside of just I think they're cruel, right? So they've never actually said, okay, you caused this animal to be like this with an e-collar, right?
Yep.
They've never had that.
Okay.
It's never happened anywhere. At least in UK, here in the United States and Canada. So it's just not happened. So that in itself is not really part of the argument. So the legislation that's currently there has never been acted upon, which means they've not used it properly, right? So the first order of business would be to actually try and use the current legislation properly and do something to actually give fines or whatever if people are using them the wrong way, or if people aren't following the rules that are set out in the legislation currently, which is, having a vet check the dog and all these other things. But none of that stuff is actually being done. I would actually prefer that not be the case. Because what I would prefer, because currently the rules are around the seller of the e-collar has a lot of ownership on it,
okay,
right? Of the responsibility, which that should not be the case.
No,
that's like saying that
here's the car.
Well, a gun dealership, the gun dealership is responsible for the person that buys the gun. That is not how it should work.
No,
they have to keep a record of who bought the gun, but they don't have. They shouldn't. Actually, they don't even have to keep a record. They have to give the record to the police, whoever bought the gun, right? They just give that record so that the police understand that they've sold the gun to this person, right? So that's how that works. But they don't have to keep track of any of it. And if that person kills somebody with a gun, it's not their responsibility, right? But in this current legislation, it actually is the trainer and the seller's responsibility to keep track of whether or not the person's doing the right thing. I think that's bullshit. That's stupid.
Yep.
Because number one, people can buy them online.
You could do it right now.
I've bought them online many, many times.
Yep.
And you can bring them in from overseas. There's nothing about the seller that has anything to do with the situation. So that's a bunch of bullshit. That needs to go away. And what they should do is change it so that the person who's buying it has been educated.
Yep.
And has done a course and has a license. So in order to use one, you have to have your license with you.
Yeah.
So if at any point anybody...
But even if you did buy them online, you have to have so your license could come with if this became international legislation, and there was an international standardization across the board.
But you don't even need that.
No, you don't even need that. But I'm just saying, if to stop people from buying these things online from overseas and then them coming in, it's you have a license number sort of thing.
But see, this is the point though. If you have a license, that doesn't matter, because at any point the council or a ranger or anybody can ask you for your license.
Yep.
And if they see that you're using an e-collar, they can ask you for your license.
That's
and if you
point.
can't provide it, then you get fined.
Yeah, true.
Right? Or whatever the penalty is.
Yep.
And the current penalty in the new draft is pretty significant. It's like a real serious fine. So that in the new draft, if you're caught using one, there's going to be serious fines. And that's with the total ban. So if you ever have one on your dog, you could get in some serious trouble. And I think jail time is actually a potential thing as part of it. And so that ban is very, the penalties for it is very serious. Why not do the same exact thing, but if you don't have your license?
Yeah, good point,
right?
man.
So get people, to understand what they are. And part of the course is what punishment is and how to use it and how you can misuse it. And then e-collars, how you can use them as punishment and how you can use them as positive reinforcement, and the potential problems that you'll have, the way that you have to put them on the dog, how long they can stay on the dog, all of that stuff. Teach about the legislation. All of those things are part of the course, and that can be a bloody weekend course or a 6-hour course, whatever. It doesn't have to be a huge deal, and you can get the basics of all that stuff, and then have a trainer help you implement it.
That's right.
That's all it needs.
Yep.
That's it. Mm-hmm. And if you could get that, then all people would have to do is show their license, right? So that's option 2. That's changing the legislation, still putting in new legislation that might actually work.
Okay, so how could this course or requirement be raised? Who would start it?
That would have to be a cooperative as part of people from whoever understands. It's really just it's about punishment. This is the thing. It's not about e-collars. It's about punishment.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the thing that is wrong with the whole situation. It's not even about e-collars. It's about punishment. That's the problem here. People are using punishment wrong. Yep. So either don't use punishment or learn about it. Simple as that. So, you don't need to be a professional dog trainer to learn about punishment, but
nope.
you can learn that if you use it wrong, you can cause these problems. That way, if you start seeing your dog stressing over certain things, then you might be doing the wrong thing, and you might want to get some additional help or whatever, right? At least at an absolute minimum. But people use punishment, they don't even realize it, So the whole thing stems from punishment in the first place. But at least if you did it around e-collars, you could say specifically with e-collars, I think prongs should be back too. Prongs should be back, and that should be part of the same course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all the same thing. If you do...
Well, you category A, B, C or whatever for your gun license, why can't you do the same thing?
I mean, but this would be like your category A, B, prongs and e-collars are in the same category.
Yeah, they fit into the same.
They're the same category. So there is no There is no other level. It doesn't matter what the punishment is. If you yell at your dog too much, you're going to do the same problem.
Yeah.
You're
creating this confused.
Yeah. You yell at the dog when they don't understand why they're getting in trouble, and they're going to create the exact same problem. Yeah. So it's about punishment, full stop. That's it. So that's the thing that's frustrating to me about the whole thing anyways, is that they're not even targeting the right issue. They're targeting the tool. They're not targeting how you use the tool. And that's really annoying to me, honestly. But option 2 is to change the legislation. That's what I want. That's what I wish would happen, is they change the legislation to be...
I'm the same, man.
Yeah.
I don't think that everybody should have them.
No, well, I
Definitely.
don't think anybody should have them without understanding them.
That's exactly right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in that category.
Yeah.
I'm not like, come on, come all, have the
e-collars
for everyone.
Yeah, that's right.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, no.
And then we have a Canadian stripper
strippers throwing them out.
E-collars to everyone. Like, that's not what we want. We want it to be controlled.
It's wrong on all levels.
Yes. But they're skipping that part about, okay, we need to educate people, and they're going straight to, well, that's too hard, so let's just ban it.
Yep.
That's what they're doing instead.
Yeah.
And it's just going to cause the same issues. You're going to have just as many dogs that are afraid, just as many dogs that have learned helplessness, just as many dogs that are going into... You have more dogs going into shelters. But
to me, that's the thing. It's like, I think about that. I ponder on it a lot. I'm like, is that what they like? Like, it's not some sort of conspiracy where they're trying to get rid of all the dogs that have all these characteristics.
Well, if you look at some of those activist groups, they actually don't think anybody should own animals.
Yeah, mainly the RSPCA. That's one of their things.
They actually don't want people to
own animals.
Like, they're not. They shouldn't be your property.
Okay.
Or something.
So think about that the next time you see that ad on the TV where the wombat runs across at last.
Yeah.
Think about that.
The wombat. That's going to go over well for the Americans and the Canadians out there.
Wombat.
Like, what is a wombat?
Yeah, it just looks like a keg of beer with fur on it.
An enormous beaver.
Yeah, and a huge beaver. Yeah. And they tunnel underground, and then they live underground, and then, if you're driving heavy machinery across farmland, there's a good chance that you'll
tip your tractor
over and kill yourself.
Bloody wombats. Yeah. There's cinder blocks on paws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you accidentally run one over with your car, you'll write your car off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monsters. But
monsters.
Kill them all.
Oh, you monster.
But yeah, that's the point that I wanted to get to, was that they have these 3 options currently, and that they've jumped to the ban one. And what we're trying to, I don't know if what I'm waiting to find out is if they're going to accept the proposal for the pure ban, or if they're going to say, well, maybe there's another option, and we'll revisit and see what option 2 is.
Hopefully that's what they're doing. Hopefully they're like, well, you guys are so far over this side that we'll just go so far over that side, and then we'll meet in the middle somewhere. My fingers are crossed that is how this is going to pan out.
Yes, that would be amazing.
I just don't have the faith in it.
The thing that bugs me about it is that the draft was what they came up with after reviewing all the information. Which makes me think, how is that possible? How did you come up with that draft knowing the current information? And which means that they're getting, whatever their logic is, it's leaning towards a ban. I don't know why. I don't know what that logic is. Because when I read the review for the UK ban, it was a 2012 review. When I read that review, the people that were doing the review, who were actually writing the legislation and all that stuff, seemed like they didn't seem like dummies. They were critiquing the all the different studies that had been quoted and all that stuff. They had critiqued all that information. All the things that when I read the studies jumped out at me were in the critique. All that kind of stuff. So they didn't seem like dummies. They are taking in information from everywhere.
They're certainly not stupid people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying...
No. But what I don't understand is what their actual reason for a ban is after reading it, right? So you read the information and then you go, well, then why are they banning it? But they still are.
Some people just want to watch the world burn.
And I don't think that's these people. I think they're unbiased and they've come to that conclusion based on something.
Yeah.
And the thing that I found very difficult about the whole process in Victoria is that I don't know how they came to that conclusion. And there's nowhere to go to find out. You can't. There's no meeting that you're allowed to go to. They had closed meetings about this.
Yeah, but who are the people that are involved in it?
In those meetings?
Yeah.
There's people from both sides. So
yeah, but who are the people? Like, I'd love to know who the people that they chose.
This is the thing. I don't know how you get on that.
How did you come to that conclusion?
Yeah.
Like, how did you?
How is that a democracy?
It's not.
It's not. Yeah. And then they put out a survey, afterwards that says, do you agree with this legislation or not? Well, then if it's based on numbers of a survey, well, that doesn't work either because popular opinion is not necessarily fact.
No, 100% it isn't, man.
Look at all the bullshit in the news. Popular opinion often has nothing to do with facts. So they can push this out and get the popular opinion to be, we don't like them because someone told me they were cruel.
They're scary.
Yeah, they're scary. Yeah, very scary. Yeah. So the popular opinion is then that they're bad. And then when they push this survey, then it says that, people don't want them. Well, it shouldn't be about that. It should be about the facts and the science behind it. And that's it.
Oh, that would make way too much sense.
No, well, and the thing that makes me think it has nothing to do with the studies and is much more political than that is that the study, like when you read the review, you wouldn't think that they would ban it. That's the way that I read it. You wouldn't think they'd ban it, and then they do, which means it must be more political.
It is, because it's like, well, we have to be seen to be doing something. If you want to be, we can't be the ones that are left out when the UK's done it.
Yeah. And all they need is, if the popular opinion is saying that people don't like e-collars, then they are going to ban them.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to get them votes. In our new legislation, we've banned these cruel things, right? And that's what they're going to push to the public that says, give me your vote. That's the...
Well, if you ban that, you better legalize something else because I'll fucking I will set the world on fire.
We might have to use...
And you need something to sedate
slingshots
this wild beast.
Slingshots for remote training.
Could you imagine?
No, slingshots are banned over here as well.
Yeah. Like the wrist rockets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like a category A firearm.
Is it?
I don't know.
Jesus.
Probably.
But anyways, have you got anything else you want to say before I start singing?
No, you sing along.
Well, that's it. That's the end of this episode. We really appreciate if you've made it this far. We do we just ask if you're one of those people that, is believe in everything,
that you hear.
That you hear.
And that you read.
And that you read. Please just look into it a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be eternally grateful.
Yeah, that would be handy.
Yeah. Anybody that writes in will get a Dog Ugly Dudes Talking... On this topic, we'll get a Dog Ugly Dudes Talking Dogs mug. Courtesy of Vistaprint.
We don't have any of those.
Oh, yes, we do.
What?
They're coming. Because I tested the waters. I made an Australian Working Dog Providers one. It's downstairs.
Are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, it cost me like $9 to get a mug.
What?
Yep, printed.
Wow. Anybody who does that gets a $9 mug.
Yeah.
You pay the
That's
shipping.
how much you're worth to us.
You pay the shipping.
All right. Thanks for tuning in if you have. And here we go. I was working as a waitress in a cocktail bar when I met you. And don't remember the next bit. Don't you want me, baby? Don't you want me? No.
Oh god.